Well, Amanda Knox has been back in the U.S. here in Seattle ever since her conviction was thrown out more than 3 years ago. But her fate is still uncertain because her acquittal was also tossed out, and then she lost a recent appeal to the Florence court. So what happens if Italy's Supreme Court upholds Knox's conviction? We asked a famous criminal defense attorney here in Seattle for his take.
I represented Colton Harris Moore, the Barefoot Bandit. I represented Sergeant Robert Bales in the Afghan massacre case.
Seattle attorney John Henry Brown has a track record of successfully defending Western Washington residents entangled in difficult legal battles abroad. He got the Barefoot Bandit sentenced to just 7 years here, despite also being sought on charges in Canada and the Bahamas. He stopped the death penalty for Sergeant Bales, who slaughtered 16 Afghan civilians. Brown blocked the extradition of Seattle arsonist Martin Pang from Brazil on murder charges. Prosecutors had to settle for manslaughter. While Brown is not representing Amanda Knox, he is following her case. Do you think she has been treated fairly?
No, not at all.
Knox spent 4 years in prison before an Italian appeals court overturned her conviction for the murder of British student Meredith Kircher. But Knox's acquittal was also overturned, reinstating her conviction. And the Italian Supreme Court is scheduled to weigh in this week.
Most people are predicting that they'll uphold her conviction. Whether they should or not is, of course, another whole question.
Many legal scholars predict Knox would have a hard time blocking extradition if Italy wants her, but not John Henry Brown.
I think really she needs to be aggressively represented here, and the Italian criminal justice system, which there really isn't one, needs to be put on trial because it's been a circus.
Brown says it's not a question of double jeopardy. He would argue there wasn't enough probable cause to even try her for the murder. And Brown sees big problems with Knox being reconvicted when she wasn't even there for the last trial.
Why didn't they try to extradite her for the in absentia trial? I mean, and I think the answer to that is because Italy would have been greatly embarrassed at any type of a hearing in the United States in front of a federal magistrate where they have to prove probable cause, because their whole system would appear to be ridiculous.
So what Brown is talking about basically is the federal court hearing that Knox is entitled to here in the U.S. before any extradition can happen. That hearing to make sure the terms of the extradition treaty between the two countries are actually met.
So if Knox is needed back in Italy, who eventually decides on the extradition?
So the first request goes to the State Department, then that federal court hearing occurs to see if the terms of the treaty are met. But then it gets really interesting. It goes back to the State Department, and that's where the ultimate decision is. I mean, the president could even end up weighing in on this, because this is not just a legal decision when it comes to extraditions.
Political.
It's also a political decision.